G20, you've got G20 engagement groups, and then there was a G20 outside, like Africa Forward, which is outside the engagement groups that were involved. So the essence of involvement is more from the social entrepreneurs. As all of you knows that you in South Africa terms, and Africa has spending much more time today, it's good that you've got a business and then you've got an NGO. So there's nothing called social entrepreneur in the policy side. And that's kind of work that, personally for me, that I've been involved in the last 21 years, where I started on the bridging the digital divide. But I see the challenges of scaling the impact of the digital divide in the sense that the work that we do as an organization, it's more on the impact but also making revenue. I mean, this is what most people at any time now need to do now. And you've seen now with the geopolitics around the USA age now that you need more social entrepreneurs now. So the work that we do as Africa Forward is to work on recognition of social innovators, that's saying that social innovators are the key drivers of the economy. And it's the same thing that I see on my hometown, that the growth and the future, it will be on the social innovators. Because the social innovators, they're the ones that are going to be changing the way things are. Because the current model, it's not working. And it needs, social entrepreneurs who see those opportunities and exploit those opportunities. So that's the work from Africa Forward. So Africa Forward, just to understand it, it's a movement of social entrepreneurs in the continent. So we are in the 36th country in Africa, and we've got 1,300 members of Africa Forward. And Africa Forward comes from Catalyst. So Catalyst, it's a global movement of social entrepreneurs. And how those movements comes up, they are coming from Ashoka, Skoll, Schwab. So those are global organizations that recognize social entrepreneurs. And then 2019, when I was part of the founding in New York, the Catalyst was founded to focus on the SDGs. And they were saying that by 2030, we're not going to achieve SDGs now. So as social entrepreneur, we need to come together. And from day one, I was involved on the driving the Africa. Until this year, January this year, I left Silulo and become full-time now on the Africa Forward. And I work with Yoki and Pel, and we work with Adrian and also Nana and Brian. So we are a team that working and putting social innovators at the core of the development. And secondly, the nice also great thing that happens in the continent, the African Union has 10-year strategy on the social and solidarity economy. So that also has been also much more important from the African Union now to see the social innovators become at the core center now. So what are the pillars of Africa Forward? There are 3 pillars that we work on now. It's on policy. So the policy and the ecosystem development is one thing that Africa Forward is working in saying that how can we work with the government? And in Africa, there's only, out of 54 countries in Africa, only 5 at the moment that are in the process of legislating social and solidarity economy. So only 5 in the continent that we find out. So we kind of using this G20 moment as a moment now where we build up momentum so that we can bring in now a government and no other possibility that today we've got that we're going to see part of the speakers now that are coming in now is to bring in the academic, you bring in the government, big businesses, social innovators.
I would just say, I know it's a cliche term, but what a time to be alive. G20 for lifetimes in South Africa, is an amazing opportunity. The world is at a point in the evolution like we've never seen before. South Africa, of course, is in the middle of all of this as we speak. But at the same time, we have great opportunity to re-establish ourselves as a global power on the African continent and the global south per se. Now, let me start off by saying that I sit here today talking to you from Japan. And
recording in progress.
I apologize that I'm not there in person due to logistical reasons. But I'm a beneficiary of a social entrepreneur. My mother, who grew up in apartheid times in Durban, in South Africa, KwaZulu-Natal, she was a community activist herself, and she put us through school, through activities that she undertook with the community. So I'm touched by the social economy. I'm one of the beneficiaries, but there are many more. As I walk the communities across the length and breadth of South Africa itself and the African continent, we are very much aware of especially our women folk who have sacrificed their time and energy to provide a service to workers who may be passing by, or the mine workers in times that have gone by. So the topic today is actually a very important one, and we are at the fulcrum as this grouping, as we sit here today. Now, SAP's mission is to help the world run better and improve people's lives, and we would like to believe that it's not just a cliche for us in the marketplace. We do this to various platforms. And on the social entrepreneurship environment and space, that we have been engaged tremendously with the Schwab Foundation, who I believe representatives are there today, Catalyst 2020 and to Africa Forward itself. And we've worked across the length and breadth of the globe to deliver our award-winning social sabbatical program. And this job creation matter is critical. So if we are able to immerse ourselves in creating better opportunities, to create a catalytic environment for our social entrepreneurs, they themselves will be able to drive job creation. But we want our social entrepreneurs in South Africa and on the African continent and the global South in general to become global. And I think with the likes of the World Economic Forum, the Schwab Foundation, and other organizations, I believe the United Nations is also engaged with this topic on a great basis. We believe that with the backing of organizations like SAP, who are putting their money where their mouths are, and we challenge the rest of the private sector out there to get behind this initiative to ensure that we leave a lasting legacy. This G20, you and I in this room, will probably not see another G20 in South Africa in our lifetimes. So let that sink in. And how do you want to be remembered as participants in this forum? How do you want to be remembered as government officials, both elected and appointed, in terms of what you left behind in the year 2025? That is my challenge to you. I've answered the call. It's time for you to answer the call.
It is an honor for us to be part of this important meeting, mainly to discuss the important role of social innovation and the social and solidarity economy in the context of South Africa's G20 presidency. Of course, from our side as the G20 presidency, we take cue from our foreign policy imperative that what we do outside South Africa should inadvertently contribute to the national interest, the well-being, the economic well-being of our people, of our immediate region, the continent, the global south, and more generally, the world. We do thus believe that social innovation has a role to contribute to this effort. It is for this reason that when he launched the G20 presidency in December last year, President Ramaphosa indicated that South Africa's G20 presidency will be a people's G20. And when he said that, it was more than a tagline or a slogan, but quite a concrete undertaking at the highest level. It is then for this reason that amidst the fractious geopolitical environment in which the South African presidency is taking place, characterized by rising inequality, rising poverty, rising armed conflict in no less than three parts of the globe, mainly the Middle East, in Gaza in particular, in the African continent, where of course we do see conflicts in areas such as Sudan, and also in the Eurasia region with the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Of course, all these geopolitical elements have an impact in the economic well-being, especially of the people on the ground. It is thus in this context that South Africa put forward as its theme for its presidency solidarity, equality, and sustainability. Of course, when we say solidarity, equality, and sustainability, it is not just a question of sloganeering, but there is a substance attached to that formulation. By solidarity, we mean that there should be no islands of prosperity surrounded by seas of poverty. And that also talks to the issue of bridging the gap between the developing south and the developed north. And then, of course, lastly, sustainability, which talks to addressing the needs of the present without compromising the aspirations of future generations. Additionally, we are in a race against time, as we are 5 years away to 2030, which is the deadline we have set for ourselves as the international community to reach the 17 sustainable development goals. We need to achieve these goals not merely because we have committed them to paper, but because the health, welfare, and happiness of billions of people depends on the progress we make. Thus, as one of our overarching priority of the G20, we are pushing an agenda that seeks to move the needle on behalf of the global south by pushing a developmental agenda, such as advocating for action to ensure debt sustainability for low-income countries. It is then imperative to note that South Africa this year, as the previous speaker has mentioned, holding the pen on behalf of Africa and the global south, and it may take some time for that pen to come back to South Africa. I'm not sure whether it will be as long as the previous speaker mentioned when he said we may not be around to see the next presidency. I remain hopeful that even though some of us may be pensioners by that time, but we will still see another South African G20 presidency. But then on a more serious note, this pen that South Africa has gives it the opportunity then to make sure that this agenda we are discussing today finds expression on the agenda of the G20, but most importantly on the leaders' declaration, which is set to be adopted, G20 leaders, in November later this year. This is why, of course, we have been working closely with social innovators, not only in South Africa, but the continent, and of course, the globe in general, to ensure then that, as happened in Rio de Janeiro, when Brazil had the presidency of the G20, the objectives of what we are discussing today, meaning social innovation and the importance of the social and solidarity economy, finds itself amongst the outcomes of South Africa's G20 presidency. This we have expressed in previous meetings we have attended in Luxembourg, in Nairobi, and also some outreach events that have already taken place in South Africa during the course of this year, because it is our belief that the social and solidarity economy offers a proven and scalable pathway for addressing these social and economic challenges we face, and also driving inclusive and sustainable development. We should also recall that this issue is also firmly entrenched in the work of the United Nations General Assembly, namely the resolution adopted in 2023 at the 66th plenary meeting on promoting the social and solidarity economy for sustainable development. This resolution provides an official definition for the social and solidarity economy and acknowledges that it can contribute to the achievement and localization of the SDGs. Further, as I indicated, the G20 Fortaleza Declaration adopted in Rio last year, in Fortaleza last year, underscores the important role that the social and solidarity economy could play in generating quality employment, promoting fair working conditions and environmental sustainability with job creation in just transition processes. From our side, as the G20 presidency, we have established a task force on inclusive economic growth, which provides for some of the work, excellent work being done by social innovators. But of course, I will also, when I conclude, speak more to what then social innovators can do to contribute to our agenda as the G20 presidency.
Mr. has said that we may not be around some of us may not be around to see the next G20 in Africa. I fully intend to be there with my youthfulness. I may have some more gray hairs, but I fully intend to be there. But no, it's a real honor to be here with you today. And while I am speaking from Switzerland in Geneva, I do speak to you as a proud Kenyan, African, someone who has seen firsthand the power of communities to build, solve, and lead. To be part of this conversation in Komani during the first G20 on African soil is humbling, and it's also quite historic. And a bit about me, I'm Dancing Kishini. As mentioned, I lead the Africa work of the Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship at the World Economic Forum. I also serve on the G20 engagement group, Startup 20, on the Inclusion and Sustainability Task Force. And my work is really, what drives me is around how do we work in global spaces to shape policy and enabling environments that can actually support local innovation, equity, inclusion, and sustainable development. And so yes, I'm based in Europe, but if you were to ask me, my WhatsApp is 90% talking to African social entrepreneurs and ministers, and 10% is my family wondering if I'm ever going to slow down. Let's just say the social entrepreneurs are currently winning. Good to be with you today. And so, before I share some numbers and a bit of data, it's worth saying that, for us, we see a social enterprise or a social innovator or a social economy organization as a business that is really trying to solve a problem, whether that's helping a young person to get a job, cleaning up the local environment surrounding, improving access to health, or maybe even supporting a small farmer. And this is a different way of doing business, as Sunil was saying, not just about maximizing profit, but how can I use business as a force for good and for impact? And back in 2024, early 2024, at the World Economic Forum, we released a report where we brought together data from all over the world, and these are some of the findings that we saw. That around the world there are over 10 million social entrepreneurs, social enterprises that exist, generating around 2 trillion in annual revenues, creating nearly 200 million jobs. And one thing that was very interesting to see is that with these types of organizations, 1 in 2 of these are led by women, which is more than double the rate in traditional businesses where they say only 20% are led by women. And so, these aren't just side projects, they're actually central to how communities are building better futures and making an impact. And we can see now that the social economy is not just a sideshow; it's a real global economic engine. And
I've been supplying this ball, especially with big solution. Now, the person who was giving me those solutions, fast forward, old man from Islam. So I'm stuck now. I don't have any material. So a person who's doing chemistry, I can give her that box. Say, this is the kind of a solution that I'm looking for, which is organic, because I go dangerous to the ground itself.
Because nothing we shouldn't be greedy. For example, if you want to do some work with Prof. Levy say you need to do your PhD, you need to do your masters. Do you understand? But you don't have that. You understand? So what must take no Ubuntu? When you helping each other, you need to have Ubuntu.
I think that Queen's Township, for every sector or industry, has certain events that are running annually. For instance, there's a fitness event, you've got a gym here that is CrossFit, you've got bodybuilding, etc. For instance, you've got, like, there was this event that what is it, that Apple Festival. To have that thing for those who do farming, have a festival where every year.
Social economic policy for South Africa is premised on the assumption that the sector has reached a stage of development that requires a clear, consistent, coherent national policy intervention to direct the effort of the stakeholders to optimize its project development.
Komani that we've met, and we, through the engagement with Komani, social entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, these are 3 things we're looking for. We are looking for from indigenous knowledge that from a G20 it can be looked at. We also looking at that from a Komani point of view, there is some sectors that from agriculture, sectors from the fashion industry that are growing, and then we have the database of the entrepreneurs that are working with us from a Komani now. So I'm kind of like trying to say, as a practical way, from the key people that are driving G20, that we can give them. So as part of this recommendation, they can find a way to include that. And we are here, Brian, myself, and Myogi, to kind of like make it language, because G20 policy is about language. Just to get the sense from you that this is a kind of a practical way that you could do that. Is it possible that we can try to do something like so it's a one way. It's a one way to say, like, it's more like a task from the G20 leaders that were here today on the conversation to say, after the conversation, this is what we, one way. So it's one thing that I'm asking, can we do that even before the meeting? It's not it's not going on, but in a way to acknowledge the time and also saying that as a community we take this very serious. So I think that's one ask, that we will write a page to the G20 Sub 20. Even if we write a page to the DECO page, we can even write a page to class, to like Department of Trade Industry from the session that we have it, and also write a page to the department, all the 4 departments. You write it just like, it's a way of saying that for Komani, that this G20, this is what came in from the community, that kind of like. So I think that's what I'm asking as a one way that we will have a paragraph that speaks for Komani.